Thank you for joining us today, Commissioner Chaney. I'd like to start, if we could, explain basically what is the Health Insurance Exchange?
Well, the Health Insurance Exchange is simply a marketplace where you can go and pick the insurance policies that you want for health insurance. It's similar to going to the grocery store and going down the coffee aisle and looking at 10 different brands of coffee and deciding what brand you want. It's similar to that. It's a lot more complicated than buying a can of coffee. Almost as expensive if you bought coffee lately, but you have all the plans for health insurance, whether you have a 10% copay, 20%, 30%, or 40%, or what we call a catastrophic policy that covers things like major medical issues. You have a comparison of the companies that will offer those products on the exchange on a website. Unfortunately, it is not something you can buy off of a piece of paper. You have to buy it off of a web portal, just like you would an airplane ticket from Expedia, Priceline, or Travelocity. So it's a way to compare and shop for the plan that best suits your need.
From your point of view, what's the most important thing someone who's uninsured in Mississippi should know about the exchange?
What they should know is that if they are uninsured and they are of low income, that means usually 200% of poverty or less, that's about $25,000 or less, they should look on the web portals for www.healthcare.gov and look at the plans that are offered in Mississippi, and they can get subsidies. 86% of the people that have bought policies in Mississippi so far since the federal government opened the exchange up have received a subsidy of some sort. If you're at 200% of poverty, you would probably pay half of what the policy would cost you in the commercial market. So it's important to go look it up, and you cover pre-existing conditions. So if you have cancer, it's something you might want to look at. We had a lady very recently, within the last matter of days, that had cancer and could not buy a policy, was able to sign up on the Affordable Care Act. The federal government now operates this exchange, not the state of Mississippi, because we were denied that opportunity by CSIO, which is part of HHS. But the lady signed up. The policy that would cover her was about a little over $700, and with the subsidies and her income, she was able to buy the policy for a little less than $3 a month. That's pretty good for someone that's not had any coverage for the last 2.5 years.
If you could explain a little more what the subsidies are and how they make the insurance that's currently unaffordable for many people more affordable.
Well, the idea of subsidies was to make policies affordable for those people that made less than 400% of poverty. You get a sliding scale. You start with a minimum amount of subsidy. If you make up to a family of four, makes up to $92,400 a year. And by the way, that's more than I make, just so throw that in for you. So a family of four could get a subsidy of a few dollars to someone who makes about $11,000 a year can get a subsidy of almost 100%. They would actually put up about $30 a month at a max. So it's beneficial for those people in the lower income range. And we've recently have gotten or secured a waiver from CSIO and HHS to let people get on the exchange that make less than 100% of poverty with something that's called an emergency waiver. Originally, they were not to be covered. So it's important to someone, if you have low income and you do not have health insurance because you work, say, 33, 34 hours a week, go to the exchange, www.healthcare.gov, and see what's available for you.
So that waiver would have been, those people would have gone to the Medicaid expansion, but now the federal government's going to let them go into the exchange and look for subsidized
They will let them go
plan?
into the exchange. You know, the state of Mississippi has turned down about $1 billion a year to expand Medicaid in the state. The governor and the legislature believes it would increase the cost of the state of Mississippi. I do not manage Medicaid. That's an issue that falls under the purview of the governor and the legislature, and they're the ones that have to choose if they want to expand Medicaid. So it's a very controversial issue. It becomes one of ideology. It's not one about whether someone actually needs help. It's one about whether we think they ought to get help or not. I say we, I should say whether the governor and the legislature think that.
I'm curious, how many people have signed up through the first week of January?
A little over 8,000 have signed up, and about 36% of those that have signed up are in the category of over 54 years of age and under 64. And the idea here is to try to get younger people, those people between 21 and 44 to sign up. So you can imagine it's been a kind of a trip for the federal government to get people signed up. We only have 2 carriers in Mississippi. If you recall, the 1st of July, we had only about half of the counties were covered in the state. We had 36 counties with no coverage at all, and we were able to convince Humana to come in and write coverage in those 36 counties. So we have at least 1 carrier in every county in the state, and we have 2 carriers in DeSoto, Madison, Rankin Hines, and Scott County.
What do you make of the enrollment numbers so far? It's skewing a little older than some expected, and Mississippi's lagging behind some other southern states. So what's your reaction to those
lagged
numbers?
behind southern states, Jeffrey, and the reason for that is because we have a federal exchange. We had state-based operations like Kentucky. They had well over 30,000 people that had signed up. We had less than 1,000 people through mid-December, but the last 2 weeks after the web portal was fixed by the federal government, they signed up a little over 7,000 people. That's pretty impressive to be able to do that, but we still have about 75,000 people that have not signed up that are available or should be able to have coverage under the Affordable Care Act. So maybe they'll get signed up between now and the end of March. March 15th is the deadline to get coverage for this year, and then we'll have another open enrollment period that will begin in October of this year.
The exchange is federally run, but what is the state doing to help people know about it and to sign up? Is there any assistance from the state level as far as directing people to that exchange?
Well, the answer to that is yes, I am doing that. I'm not required to help direct people to the exchange because it is federally operated, as most people are aware. There was some controversy about whether or not the state would have a state-based exchange, which I preferred. I thought it would be better for the state to operate the exchange instead of the federal government. The governor didn't agree with me, and so he's kind of won that battle, and we have a federal exchange. I have very, very little influence over the federal exchange. My hands are tied as to the operation of the federal exchange. Agents and brokers are left out. The federal exchange utilizes someone called a navigator to explain a program. In Mississippi, we require that if you sell a policy, you have to have a license by the state, otherwise it's a felony. So it's a very convoluted mess, and we have very little input. But all that aside, I think part of my statutory duty as an elected official is to take care of the 2.9 million citizens in this state, and I intend to do that. Politics aside, this is about helping people. Whether you like the Affordable Care Act or don't like it, it's going to be here for another 3 years. The president is elected for a 4-year period. He still has 3 years left in his term of office. So we're going to have the Affordable Care Act at least for the next 3 years. Even if Congress were to vote it down and defund it, the president has the veto power. There's not enough votes to override a veto. So I look at it as it's the law. I have to enforce it, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to help the citizens the best I can. Politics aside, it's the right thing to do.
So what can we expect? Radio advertisements, television advertisements? What type of, can you give us an idea of what that outreach will look like?
I can't do any outreach per se from our department, but what we have done is when people call us, we have a website that directs them as to where to go. We work with Magnolia Healthcare and Humana to tell them how that we think they should have outreach. And one of the things that we did was in December, we said, this is what you ought to be doing. And when Humana and Magnolia moved to do what we suggested to them, look at the enrollment. It went up 7,000 people in less than 14 days. So the proof's in the pudding. You see what, if you do things right and you do it with a common cause of trying to improve the plight of everyone, you can move that mountain. But this is not politics to me. This is about taking care of our state.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.